Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and T. Earl Grey Decaf? You've changed, man. I don't even know who you are anymore. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. It's the first week of class, but I'm happy that Picard's finally premiered.
Are you shook? Are you shooketh?
You know what? That's the perfect word for it.
All right, well, we
took it right out of my mouth.
We'll get into it. We need to get right into it tonight, and we will. But first, I want to explain to any new listeners why this show is called Discoverage, other than it just being my brand of terrible punnage. We started this show, Ella and I, with the premiere of Star Trek Discovery a while ago, and we've done a live show more or less for every episode of Disco and both seasons of the short treks. And when we started, that's all there was. This new chapter in the Star Trek universe, Discovery, but that's not the case anymore. There was a lot of new Trek headed our way, and we knew that we'd have to expand our remit beyond just Disco and make this show an all-encompassing show about new Trek. We just don't have a new name for the show because I like dumb puns too much. But, listeners, if you have an idea for a new name for the show that encompasses all of the new Trek to come, let us know. Tweet it to us at EISTPOD, and maybe we'll kick it around if it's a bad enough pun. Also, joining us on the show tonight is a musician and a podcaster, the host of the Virtual Theater podcast, the Pro Wrestling Required Viewing podcast, and my co-host on the Backtrekking podcast. It's Gooey Fame. Gooey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you here.
Picard's gone soft.
What's that?
Picard's gone soft. Decaf.
He's gone soft. Can't take it anymore. I mean, I didn't think he'd be drinking cold brew, but decaf, come on. I always ask new guests to the show how they first discovered Star Trek. How did you become a Star Trek fan?
I became a Star Trek fan early on from just seeing my dad watched it. He's a big watched a lot of sci-fi on TV, and I didn't become a fan then, but it like implanted on my brain, you know. Sure. And then about 10 years ago, when Netflix put all the Star Trek on there, I like binge watched, all of TNG and Deep Space Nine, and watched all the movies and the original series, and I've been a fan for about a decade now.
I'm trying to think of, it's just so weird, like being a super fan of something, or a real stan, as the kids say. And, like, things that are just, like, around, like when you're a kid. Like, things that you absorb and you just go, oh, yeah, I know that thing. And maybe you have some familiarity with it. But I don't know what that spark is that sort of flips you over into, like, okay, I'm a huge fan of this now. And I got to see everything.
Yeah, it's like, it felt like something being unlocked or, like, unraveling, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I get it now. Like, I used to think my dad watches this weird show with the alien with like big ears, and now it's like, oh, I understand my dad now.
Yeah.
And then you were activated.
Perfect.
Start karate kicking everybody. You've been the host of two Star Trek podcasts. You're the host of the co-host of Existence is Futile, and you're on Backtrekking with me.
Yes, yeah. So I feel like even though I've only been a fan for a decade, I'm qualified to talk about Star Trek.
Oh, I think so. You've got you're a Star Trek podcaster. You're a wrestling podcaster too. So was there a moment for you, like Star Trek, where it was like, oh, well, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I gotta make a podcast about this.
Yeah, I was similarly activated. Except I was a fan as a kid, and then when I grew up, I was like, I remember loving this, and then it was like gonna dive deep back into it. So yeah, same situation actually.
Do you have? I love. I think you were showing me some pictures a while ago of some wrestlers who were like dressed up in Star Trek gear.
Yes, yeah, that happened like last year at like a pay-per-view even. So that was like a big moment, actually.
Do you find that there's a lot of crossover between Star Trek and wrestling beyond Sunkatse?
It's turning out to be true, actually. It's kind of weird. But, I think it makes sense. When I've been watching some TOS lately, and some of the fights in there just like give me a similar feeling as to like watching someone take a good body slam, you know.
Yeah.
I saw Kirk pull off a Hurricane Rana to Khan, I think, in Space Seed.
I just remember him like beating him with that pipe that he pulled out of the engineering console, but little foreign object action there.
You know, there was a Hurricane DDT in this episode of Picard, so
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, this series Picard is the second new Trek series of this era, not counting the short treks. What do you think of new Trek so far?
I think it's okay. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on it. I like that we're expanding our horizons and trying new things, but you know, I'm sometimes a little nervous that it's like trying to be like everything else instead of trying to be something new and unique. But I'm still enjoying it. So
yeah, I think it's so hard to, you know, it's sort of like the Bond franchise. You know how like one family has controlled the producing of the Bond franchise for the entire length of it, and like, you know, for the longest time, all the previous Trek series were kind of the same thing, controlled by one person or kind of one company, and now it's sort of in newish hands. And so I think it would be really hard to recapture exactly what previous Trek shows were, but I think that they've done a good job so far, and I love the fact that we're getting a show like Picard, which takes us in a completely different direction than Discovery did.
Oh, certainly.
We actually covered an episode of Discovery on backtracking when we talked about Edge of Tomorrow, and we compared it to Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad.
Yeah, and you know, that was pretty cool. I felt like that was trying to be sort of a more throwback episode, though. But it did. I think it did a good job of, you know, like taking what was fun about old Star Trek, but also making it fun in a modern way.
Yeah, it was a classic Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
situation.
Star Trek is not unfamiliar with that.
Yeah, that's kind of what our show's about. But people can want to check that out. They can check it out on Twitter at backtrekking with that's 3 Ks technically, .com, or it's on Twitter. It's great to have you on the show. We've just seen the premiere of the new CBS All Access Star Trek series, Star Trek Picard. It's an episode called Remembrance. And before we start, as always, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone, listeners. So be warned, we're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Remembrance is, at the end of the 24th century and 14 years after his retirement from Starfleet, Jean-Luc Picard is living a quiet life on his vineyard, Chateau Picard. When he is sought out by a mysterious young woman, Daj, in need of his help, he soon realizes she may have personal connections to his own past. The episode was written by, and buckle up for this one, the teleplay is by Akiva Goldsman and James Duff. Goldsman is an Academy Award-winning screenwriter who wrote the teleplay for the premiere of Discovery, The Vulcan Hello. He also wrote several other episodes of Discovery and has directed 2 episodes of the series. He's collaborated in the past with Disco co-creator Alex Kurtzman, specifically on the sci-fi series Fringe, which was co-created by Kurtzman and his writing partner Roberto Orci. James Duff is a writer and producer and the creator of the television series The Closer and Major Crimes. And among his many TV credits, he also wrote the first season Enterprise episode, Fortunate Son. The story for the episode is by Akiva Goldsman, Michael Chabon, Kirsten Beyer, Alex Kurtzman, and James Duff. I heard a little woot for Kirsten Beyer. So Alex Kurtzman, we know. Michael Chabon is a Pulitzer Prize-winning author and screenwriter. He co-wrote the short trek Calypso with Sean Cochran, and he wrote the short trek Q&A. He's also an executive producer and is the showrunner of Picard. And Kirsten Beyer is credited with creating the concept for the Picard series. She's also a supervising producer on the show. She wrote 2 episodes of Discovery, and her 12th Star Trek Voyager tie-in novel, To Lose the Earth, comes out in October of this year. The episode is directed by Hanel M. Culpepper, who previously directed the Discovery episodes Vaulting Ambition and The Red Angel, and she'll be directing the next episode of Picard as well. The stardate for this episode is unknown, although we know that it's set in the last decade of the 24th century. And here's a few interesting aspects of this episode. This is the first appearance of Jean-Luc Picard on screen since Star Trek Nemesis in 2002, not counting an infographic of Admiral Picard seen in Children of Mars, the short trek. It's also the first reappearance of Data since his death in Nemesis, although he had a voice cameo in 2005 in the series finale of Enterprise, These Are the Voyages. This is the third Star Trek series premiere in which Jean-Luc Picard has the first spoken lines of dialogue. Both TNG and Picard feature an exchange between Picard and Data, whereas Picard has the first lines as Locutus in the first episode of DS9. This is the first on-screen appearance of the Daystrom Institute, and this episode establishes that it's located in Okinawa, Japan. And this is the first Star Trek production to depict events taking place after the 2387 destruction of Romulus seen in Star Trek 2009. If we ignore any momentary depictions of the future, like Calypso or Dr. Burnham's vlog entries or the Temporal Cold War or any alternate futures, there's a lot of time travel in Star Trek. What did you guys think of Remembrance?
Ooh, you go first.
Dewey, take it.
I thought it was pretty good. I feel like it's still like I just watched it, so I'm still kind of processing some things, and it also is like so early on. Like it feels like there's a lot of show still to come. Yeah. But overall, I thought it looked good. It sounded good. Patrick Stewart is amazing in it. And, you know, it set up what seems like an interesting story. So I'm on board.
Joey's on board.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really strong premiere. Honestly, I mean, if you want to not to throw shade, but if you compare this to the first episode of Disco,
okay, or most Star Trek shows, I feel like
that's
really
also true. Yeah. I thought it was very strong for a pilot, especially.
Comparing it to Disco, I wish it was longer. I know that
it was so short.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was 43-ish minutes, but just everything that they set up and everything that we know is coming. And I know that it's only 10 episodes this first season, and it's envisioned as kind of a 10-hour movie. But right away, I was like, okay, great setup. Where's the next part of this? Where's the second half?
I can see that too. Like it didn't necessarily end in like. I don't know, satisfying sort of way. Like it did have a cool teaser, I thought, but it didn't feel like this was the end of an episode or a story, you know. But I guess that's, you know, the nature of this kind of show.
Yeah, if the opening was great. I thought, obviously, kind of coming in for the using the poker to sort of connect to All Good Things, and of course. We see Mars get effed up real bad, and it's funny that such a major event is placed. I'm sure we'll get more information, but it's kind of placed in the past of this series. You know, we see very little bit during the car commercial that was Children of Mars, and then we see, just a couple flashes and some mentions in dialogue in this episode. But I kind of really want to know, what really happened with the whole Mars thing. It sounds horrible.
Yeah, well, I'm curious. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but why? What's the point of attacking? Is it just because it's a big shipyard?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, they do mention that the Utopia Planitia shipyards are destroyed, and I got the idea that nobody's living on Mars, or at least it's very difficult to live on Mars because things are still kind of popping off and rough there.
Yeah, I saw what Matt Damon had to go through there. So.
Oh my God, no! Bring him home.
Yeah,
Damon, colonize that planet. You give him what he deserves.
Yeah, it's not blue skies; it's red skies. Yeah, but now black skies.
There is some good, like I feel like connective tissue there, filling in the gaps, like with the destruction of Romulus or whatever. But I did feel like with the attack on Mars and like the synths thing they're setting up, it felt like. I don't know. It felt like maybe so much of a leap, from where we left off, where it was not bad. It was just a little bit jarring. Like, oh, there are synths now in the world.
Yeah, that's something that we should probably try to discuss a little bit. Something that has come up before on Enterprising Individuals, we actually talked about it a lot last year, was the glaring lack of artificial intelligence and synthetic life that you see in Star Trek, outside of a standout character like Data, who we're told over and over again is the only sentient android. And in other people's futures, you got, you're talking to artificial people and holograms, and you got robots and all this stuff. And there are, we don't have to get into it now, but we've kind of come up with a couple different theories as to why that was just never a focus of storytelling in Star Trek. But that is, it's game on now. Like, we have a major plot point, and it looks like a major character which are all connected to this idea of them finally opening the doors and then apparently slamming the door shut.
Yeah.
The Mars thing on synthetic life.
Yeah, so it felt like we've already experienced, like, not only did they figure it out, but then they were like, no, we can't do this. So that's why it felt like this is a lot to process right now.
Yeah, right. And of course, this is what the action of the show will be as we go on. But I still wanted to, you're going to mention that, synths, wiped out Mars, and then that's it in this episode? We're going to, meet a synth. Maybe we've met a synth. Maybe, well, we know that the guys in the black are Romulans, but I just felt like, I know it's a mystery, but it's like, come on, guys, give me something more than that.
It's interesting that, it's Daj, she was her specialization was artificial intelligence, and then when Picard even said the word android, she was like, had a horrible, she was like, you're telling me I'm not real, had this reaction, I just think the vocab is interesting, saying synth.
How could a robot can't say dude? It's good to know that dude has survived to the 25th century.
And tragic.
Maybe it's the fact that she understand, or maybe she already had a pre-existing sort of fear of that, kind of understanding AI and quantum consciousness. It's like people who use the holodeck a lot. You have to imagine that if they have a bad dream or something happens to them, they kind of look up at the ceiling and, ask the computer to turn it off just to check, so maybe being told that she might be, an android or something like that was just extra sort of distressing for her.
Yeah, it would be for anybody. But
well, I suppose I'd like to be able to beat up a million guys and jump really far.
You know what? Same.
We should we're kind of moving through the storyline of the show here, so we should probably talk about Daj. But first, I wanted to mention, wow, what is the deal with that reporter? It looks like the press is still got it going on, still has fangs in the late 24th century.
She went after him.
Yeah,
that was gotcha journalism.
Absolutely, it was gotcha journalism. Well, first, we already know that we're in bad territory here because she's got the Total Recall lipstick selection thing. So it's like, okay, come on. But then, she goes right after him, and I know that we need to get background on the world of the show, but I'm trying to imagine what was the point? What was the story she was trying to put together? What was she trying to get at? She just goes after this beloved figure who, had one
this
little
old man on
his career.
I understand too. She would probably push it, but didn't they say we said we're not going to talk about that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I thought there would be maybe a more subtle into that, but instead it was actually that's the only thing we're going to talk about.
We're just gonna
she said he hadn't given an interview ever, right? So it was the first one.
Sure.
And then she's also trying to demonize Romulans and synths. Yeah.
Yeah,
she went after him.
That was distressing. Picard says, and it's apparently the reason that he quit Starfleet, is that it wasn't Starfleet anymore, and that he disapproved of their actions. And so I have to wonder did the Badmirals finally win? Is the corrupt leadership of Starfleet, did it lead it down the wrong path? And then to have a journalist just openly be pretty racist against, a former enemy of the Federation, but just to do that on Federation TV or whatever they've got, I wonder if the quality or the tenor of the Federation is changing in this as they go to the 25th century.
Well, you also, I think it's complicated. It's you have this organization that is meant to be scientific, meant to explore, but then it also kind of has to double as like a wartime fleet.
Right.
And so it's like you can't really have it both ways. You know what I mean?
The show has for 50 years.
I mean, no, but I mean, like, but even then, it's like, it's just like it gets complicated, which obviously is the show. But like,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with you, but I think it sort of makes sense coming off of, I guess, the last periods we know about in this sort of timeline or whatever is all kind of it is all kind of grim a little bit, you know, with like the war with the Dominion and, you know, the destruction of Romulus. It's like definitely a like unraveling a little bit of that the piece, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you mean like real world? My real world sucks, but now my Star Trek is going to be depressing and suck too.
It is kind of a bummer, yeah. Like, like that. I mean, I get it. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, I like the idea of like doing new things, but the idea that we've now Starfleet is just an avatar for like, I don't know, the United States is like odd, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, everybody loved it when it was all fun and, you know, Manifest Destiny in the 60s. But if you want to keep it going, then I guess it has to be what we are now. In the second decade of the 21st century. I don't love it.
Yeah. Well, it's my perspective too would be like if we're going full on, you know, that, then the actual realization would be that Starfleet was probably never good. But that's just me.
Gooey, just destroying the whole thing. First time on the show. Did Picard save any remans? That's what I want to know.
That strikes a chord with me because I just watched Nemesis.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I love
his
those
housekeeper
vampire
is a Romulan,
guys.
and maybe his chef is a Reman.
Yeah, maybe there are some that don't look like Dracula's.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're Tom Hardy, then I guess they're not Dracula's. But, let's talk about the character of Daj and what we know or what we suspect. What really gets me is, and of course, like I was excited about this. I knew we'd be talking about it on this show, and I'd be watching the show, so I didn't really try to prognosticate about like what the show was going to be or what it'd be like. But I can't believe that everybody was right. You know what I mean? Like everybody was like, "Oh, she's gonna be Lal, or she's gonna be Data's daughter, or whatever," and it's just like everybody that guessed that was right.
Yeah, there's a lot of like weird fan stuff that I was surprised like that they would feature a lot. Like I didn't think they were gonna make a big deal out of the destruction of Romulus, or like I don't know. I just thought like because it was a Kelvin thing that it's like we're just not gonna really deal with that. But I guess how could you not?
Yeah, it'd be tough to. I don't think you can just hand wave it away. I mean, it's
yeah. So I mean, but it makes sense with that, and I guess with that sometimes like the most obvious answer is the one, I guess.
Is the one that it is.
Yeah.
Ella, did you have any like expectations? Did you expect anything, predict anything that would happen?
I mean, I guess not. I was trying to not guess anything for myself, just because I was like, I want to watch it, and I just want to know, like, I want to see what happens. I didn't want to try to like anticipate anything that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But I also, I love Data, sucker for an android. So I'm pretty I'm excited. I guess the thing is that, like you guys were saying, the episode kind of ended, and it's like the real cliffhanger was really more in the teaser for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So like I really have more questions than anything else right now.
I'm speaking of what we saw near the end and what's coming up. I feel bad for B4.
Why? Because he's in a drawer?
Yeah, well, drawer. Yeah, we find out that the whole memory thing didn't work, and then apparently at at some point in the future, it's like, yeah, okay, well, just take his head off, I guess.
Does he not kind of deserve to just vibe in a drawer, though? It's like you can't do anything in there. You're not getting into any trouble. You know?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I thought that, clearly, like, Gooey can tell us, he just watched it, but clearly the intent was, or at least the suggestion was, that B4 would not necessarily be Data, but one day would advance to the point that he would be someone like Data. And there's hope there, that was intended at the end of the film. And then Akiva Goldsman and everybody else comes in, they're like, no, he's dead. Didn't work. In a drawer.
Yeah, I did think maybe it made more sense when it was going to be, if it was going to be something they were going to continue not long after it. But now that we're, a couple decades later or whatever, I think it probably just made more sense to go with Data flashbacks as far as having Brent Spiner in the show.
Yeah.
Well, also, if they if that whole department is shut down, he might as, why would he be any place else but in a drawer?
I suppose, yeah. Maybe when they pulled the funding and then outlawed synths, they're like, hey, buddy, so bad news. Let me get to your off switch here. We're going to have to pull
It was like
off.
a whole other measure of a man, but before Lost, and now he's in a drawer.
Yeah, give him a rabbit to hug and squeeze and play with, and then to the back of the head. Yeah, he's down. As far as Daj goes, I have a lot of questions about, like, what kind of technology your average non-Starfleet Federation citizen has access to. Because we do get a quick scene where she's attacked in her apartment in future Boston, and they say, "Oh no, speak English." So I guess regular people don't have universal translators, and then this whole time they're like, "Oh, Dodge, you might be a robot. Somebody grab a tricorder and let's just get this done already." Like, what's the problem here? And then she blows up.
She's flesh and
which
blood.
was very shocking, but also just grab a tricorder and just look at the mist and go, oh yeah, some duranium. She's a robot.
Yeah, you'd think they would have noticed. Maybe that's how advanced they are. I don't know.
Yeah, she's like a clone or something weird.
Yeah, or she's organic, possibly.
Yeah.
See, yeah, this is why I'm frustrated, because they drop out, like, it's like just naming a bunch of different sciences or like phenomena and being like, like that. And then, okay, well, yeah, but what is it though? Come on.
When she blew up, I mean, in the moment it was kind of sad, but I feel like the show moved on from it pretty quick, because there's there's a copy of her.
Yeah. When you right. And then, like, when you have a character be thrown, 20 yards back by an explosion.
Oh my God, I was like, that's an old man.
Yes, he's probably, well, men in the future of Star Trek live to be like plus 100, so maybe he's not that old, relatively speaking. Wow. Maybe he could take it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he woke up on his couch, they sent him right home.
Right. When he wakes up somewhere else, you immediately think, okay, what's the twist here? It's a simulation or something, or more of the black pajama guy showed up and kidnapped him, and they're pretending to be his housekeeper, or like what? Maybe I expect I'm a little too ready for the twists.
Yeah. I felt like they just like were like, though, like, she's got a clone, so like don't worry about her. But then I was thinking, like, I've watched 7 seasons and 4 movies of TNG with Data, and like his death is, even in a movie that I didn't think was that great, is still, it's like sad. A life ended, what I mean?
A woman has died.
Yeah, it's like, and they're just like, anyway, good thing we set up that there's clones.
We got an extra.
Oh,
so do you
poor
think,
Dash?
So what do you guys think is going on then? Like, are these somehow, like, mentally they're descendants of Data, but their bodies are like flesh and blood? Is this Blade Runner 2409? What's going on?
I think it's something about like his like leftover neurons or whatever, where they were made using parts of his brain, so they kind of have like his memories almost, but they're like their own people, is kind of the vibe I got.
Okay, interesting.
That's where the painting comes in.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're going to find out that the synths are derived from Data or B4 or Sunian technology. We've seen the preview already of like people with Data eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
well, if we've learned anything from these theories, is that the most obvious one is the truth. So, yeah,
right. So I'll just go on Twitter, and whatever anybody's saying, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Something I absolutely did not expect to hear or see in the show was them to mention Bruce Maddox.
That was sick. I was pumped.
Yeah, and the fact that you don't say a guy disappeared and not plan to have him on the show, right?
Yes.
Oh, he's coming back.
Brian Brophy, the actor, still around, still acting. I went on his IMDb page. There's no entry there, but we know after the Javid Iqbal.
We've been through this once before.
Of 2018. Yeah, we you can't trust that.
I love the promise of like these side, characters who are only in like one episode coming back, like even more so than like hey, 7 of 9's here. I don't know why, but I love like the idea of like Hugh came back,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Bring Philippa Louvois back too. I like.
Oh my gosh!
I like the ironic idea that Bruce Maddox, a guy who wanted to do what they did, rip Data's head off and just get in them guts, might be the guy who is ultimately the answer to whatever this is. Or he might actually be a helpful force now because he continued to study synthetic life, all these years.
Yeah, and by the end of his run in Measure of a Man, I think maybe just when Data kind of extended the olive branch to him, I kind of like came over to him a little bit. Like he won me over just in like that last like line delivery he had where he called Data he and stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
Like I'm so ready for Maddox redemption.
But yeah, me too.
Well, I was kind of half thinking like she said he disappeared, but what if he's I don't remember what Dodge said her father's name was, but what if that's him? You know what I mean?
Oh. He disappeared to Seattle, where she's from, I guess. We never saw future Seattle. Maybe we'll see that later.
It's probably a good place to hide away. Yeah.
Let's see. What else? Of course, we have to talk about the Romulan reclamation site, which it is revealed is a Borg cube, which they are working on. And I guess we have to wonder what exactly is happening there.
Some Borg stuff.
Borg stuff.
It was a cool. All I can say really is it was a cool visual. That was pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what what they would need from the cube, like what they're using. Because I feel like you'd only, like, who wants to live and or work on a Borg cube?
Good point. I got the impression that there's probably not a lot of Romulans left in the galaxy. If we had all these supernovas and then the Armada was something of a disaster. So maybe the ones that are left are just trying to get whatever they can to help their race or to just get some edge.
Yeah, that seems like something they would go for,
Yeah.
But, like,
I mean, do we trust off-brand Ethan Peck?
Absolutely not. He totally seems untrustworthy. I don't know how I feel. Is it Dr. Asher, the backup Dodge?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Sounds right.
I don't know what to think about her. I mean, what's she doing here?
Yeah, I guess we just got like a little tease. It's hard to really get much from that one interaction.
He said that she fixes broken people.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, what is that? Like, does she rehabilitate? Like,
maybe she has a connection to 7 of 9 or something.
Yeah.
Fixes broken cyborgs.
Yeah.
She seems to be aware of a twin. It didn't seem like Dodge knew that she had a twin.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
I mean, she had a twin.
But they both have a Gucci necklace.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which thank God she took off so it didn't blow up.
Maybe she has a bit more knowledge about the whole situation or whatever, so it'll be like a totally different, thing when Picard runs into her.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to speculate on. Speaking of which, we did get a look or a sneak peek at the upcoming season. Anything cool or good in there you guys wanted to point out? I like the seeing the old Romulan warbird.
I mean, I'm just ready for Jerry Ryan.
Jerry Ryan, yeah, me too.
I liked seeing Hugh in action for a couple seconds. Yeah, Jerry Ryan too, of course.
Yeah, I've been sort of reading those like news articles about Jonathan Del Arco talking about his return. It's very fascinating. Yeah, seeing the Rikers was cool. Did you guys hear about? Patrick Stewart going on The View and inviting Whoopi Goldberg to be in Picard?
No,
I did see that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess like he's been doing the interview circuit, for the show and everything.
Yeah.
And it was like yesterday or the day before he was on The View, and basically is like, "Oh, you can come on anytime," and she was like, "Oh, great." And I feel a lot of news outlets have just taken and ran with this and just announced that she's going to be in Picard
confirmed.
Season 2.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why she wouldn't be, but I don't think we haven't worked out the contracts just yet.
Yeah, I really like those characters' dynamic. So
yeah,
like even more so actually than I know Picard and Data are like the two go-tos when you think of that show. But I always liked the dynamic of Picard and Guinan a little bit more.
Yeah, Picard serves as kind of a mentor to Data, and Guinan is sort of a mentor to Picard. But of course, he's got a few more miles on the odometer now, so maybe it won't be quite. Maybe it'll be more of a friendship of equals. I just want to see like she's not running the 10 forward on the Enterprise anymore. So what's Guinan up to?
It's got to be something
a different bar on a different starship.
Oh, I hope it's something radically different because, like, we see her in like Time's Arrow. I don't even remember what she's doing, but she's hanging out with Samuel Clemens. So,
Mr. Data, yeah.
I hope she's hanging out with the Mark Twain of the future.
We also I like that scene where Picard goes to the Jedi archives to check this stuff out. And there's like a freestanding hologram character. I mean, I don't know if this is just the development of holographic technology in the future, or maybe the return of Voyager spurred this. But we've got sort of freestanding holographic helpers and people now, and that just goes more towards the increase of seeing automation and synthetic life. And I don't know why that's okay, but like a synth isn't okay.
So wait, let me. Okay, so I have a question about that hologram, the index.
Yeah.
So when Picard asked her if anybody else had been in his archive, and she said no, do you guys think that she was telling the truth? Because it reminded me of the scene at the beginning when Picard is like, "Oh, you have a tell. It's that your eyes are completely neutral when you're bluffing.
Oh,
your tell is that you don't have a tell." And then he asked her that question, and she said no, but it's like totally neutral.
Well, that's good guess, good observation. It's if that's true, they should have paid it off in this episode because I'm too dumb to remember that until the next episode. But yeah, I could totally see that being a thing.
I was more concerned with. I guess I just wonder who told her that the other one was on his wall at home. Like,
yeah. Well, she does say "I believe," but yeah, she still.
Okay.
She had a little more information than I guess I'd be comfortable with Facebook knowing about me.
Did he converse with her about?
Picard's always getting targeted ads about lighthouses and paint. Yeah. Well, anything else you guys can think of? I think we've been pretty thorough.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for the rest of the season.
Yeah, me too. I like the action in it. It was pretty cool. to see some of that in Star Trek, you know.
Yeah, and it was it's so violent. You know, she just
Yeah.
murders everybody, and then a guy sprays acid on her, and her face melts off, and then they all blow up. And
I know he had it's like he had a cyanide tablet of acid in his mouth.
right, yeah. And
I just thought, like, did they just retcon Romulan blood to be like acidic or something? Because it was like green.
Blood, but oh my god, yeah. I don't know. I like the mystery of it all. I'm excited for more. Yeah, more of that. I'm excited for his fellowship to band together next episode.
And my Lurpa, yeah, right. I just somebody go buy a tricorder. Come on.
They'll solve this so much quicker.
But if she doesn't show up on the freaking security cams, if you scanned her,
yeah,
wouldn't she just appear normal? I mean, if she says she grew up in Seattle, so she'd been to the doctor. I would hope that she'd been to the pediatrician.
Yeah, and then
that's just how good they are.
Data's mom had a circuit or something where they could scan her, and she seemed human or whatever. Like, she got beamed around a lot, and so I mean, it could be something like that. But I think we just got done on backtracking talking about The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and horror in Star Trek, and how it's tough to do horror in Star Trek because everybody's got sensors and ray guns. And so you just go, is it a ghost? It's not a ghost. It's just a guy in a sheet. And then you just stun him and we're done. And so maybe we're seeing a little bit
but
of
if
like...
it was a ghost, would it show up on the tricorder?
Oh! Now you're getting scared. But I think we're seeing more of what would it be, what's the storytelling like when we don't have the resources of Starfleet, when we're, apart from that sort of thing. But if I was an admiral, I would take, he took his communicator home. Take a tricorder home.
Slip in your pocket.
What if your dog is, is trouble pooping? You want to scan him, see what's wrong with him.
Oh, the dog.
The dog.
Yeah, that was sweet. Is that his actual dog?
I don't know.
Or is that an actor?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so, but Patrick Stewart does do a lot of work with charities for animals, and he is an animal lover, and so it wouldn't surprise me if that was his dog, or he had a dog a lot like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we have covered just about everything we can, so let's call it for this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPod for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. And you can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage or email us at eistpod@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. And if you want to help the show grow, stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on January 30th for the second episode of Star Trek Picard entitled Maps and Legends. We'll be going live once again at 7 p.m. Central, so join us then. You can also follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTpod to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. In the meantime, check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday, I and a guest discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere and interviews with special guests. Our fifth season premiere is currently available. On it, I talk with comics writer Kevin Church about the TNG episode Captain's Holiday. It's another episode where we get to see Picard out of uniform, so go check that out. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about this episode of Picard. Remind people where they can find you online.
Yeah, we are Generations Geek, wherever you listen to podcasts, and generationsgeek.com, Generations Geek on Twitter and Instagram. And we just posted a recap of my experience. I went to this VR experience in London that was based on the War of the Worlds musical.
Oh, neat.
And it was mind-blowing, and it's a great story, and I went by myself. It was a whole thing. It's really fun, so everyone can check that out.
Is this you put the goggles on and
Yeah, some of it was goggles on, like total VR stuff, like looking up at the at the tripods, and then some of it was like almost like more when you go to an escape room and it's like a set with like actors. Like we found like this wounded soldier and like somebody like served us like crackers at one point and then like all the lights went out. It was terrifying and amazing. I can't. It was crazy.
That sounds so great. I haven't been to a theme park in since I was young, a long time. And I've been looking at YouTube videos of like the Rise of the Resistance, like Star Wars Galaxy.
Oh my God,
stuff.
me too.
It looks crazy, yeah.
It looks amazing.
You can't tell. I'm sure that everybody in there is an animatronic, right? Like
almost.
But they look so real. Yeah, there's a couple people who are like, yeah, we'll go this way, go left, go right.
Yeah.
But it's just like the way that Disney has. I mean, we're gonna have synths pretty soon if Disney's in control because these people are really realistic. Gooey, thanks for being on the show. What's coming up on Virtual Theater?
We just had an episode about Ace Attorney come out.
Okay.
Yeah, Phoenix Wright adaptation.
Right.
And we're going to be releasing next episode about the first episode of The Witcher on Netflix. We didn't want to do the whole season because that's too much. But we dipped our toes in the water of that, so...
Have you done TV shows before?
We did the first season of Castlevania on Netflix because it's 4 20-minute episodes. So it's about a movie length, which fits we do like a play-by-play, basically, of the whole movie and, say what we liked about every scene. So it worked for that. And that was great. So we're probably going to do that for season 2, even though it's a little bit longer at some point.
Nice. And what's coming up on Backtracking?
Well, we just had come out today our episode about The Thing, and I can't even remember the Enterprise episode. It was the name of it, but Regeneration. That's it. And then Borg, Thing, zombies. That was a great pairing, I thought.
Yeah.
What do we got? Our next episode is Starship Mine, which is what's it called? God, I'm bad with the names today.
Starship Mine was the first episode.
That was the very first episode. Yeah. Enemy Mine.
Yeah.
Which is bears a lot of similarity to Darmok, apparently. I still haven't watched it yet, but we'll see how that goes. It looks like it at face value.
A little peek behind the curtain. Okay.
Yeah.
Go check that out, people. And that's it for us. Thanks for listening, everybody. We are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella and Gooey saying live long and prosper.